My name is Emma Carter, and for most of my life, my parents never believed I'd amount to anything serious. They said I was too emotional, too idealistic, too soft for the real world. Growing up, my older brother Ryan was the family star. Straight A's, scholarships, business suits at 15. I was the artist, the dreamer, the one who cared too much about unrealistic things. My parents loved him for his logic and rolled their eyes whenever I tried to explain why I wanted to study law. Law. Dad had laughed. You can't even argue your way out of a parking ticket. Mom added, it's not for people like you, sweetheart. You're sensitive. Law is for tough people. I swallowed their words and smiled because fighting them only made things worse. But deep down, I promised myself that one day I'd prove them wrong. Not through anger, but through achievement. When Ryan got into a prestigious business school, my parents threw a huge party. When I got into a small but respected law school, they just said, "Oh, that's nice." I studied harder than I ever had in my life. I spent nights in the library, mornings in internships, and weekends volunteering for legal aid. I didn't have fancy grades at first, but I had grit, and that grit turned into skill. By the time I graduated, I'd earned an internship with a local attorney known for taking on difficult cases. My parents barely noticed. Ryan had just bought a luxury car. They didn't come to my first trial observation. They didn't ask about my work. But one day, everything changed. I got a call from my mentor, telling me about a high-profile case. A small business owner accused of fraud. Most lawyers avoided it because the case was messy and politically complicated. I agreed to assist, not knowing it would lead to my biggest test yet. After months of late nights, I found a legal loophole, a hidden clause in an old contract, that could change everything. My mentor trusted me enough to present part of the argument in court. When I told my parents I'd be speaking in a real courtroom, they smirked. "So you're finally playing lawyer?" Dad joked. "Just don't embarrass yourself," Mom added. Their words stung, but I smiled and invited them anyway. "Come see for yourself," I said. The morning of the trial, my hands shook as I buttoned my blazer. My parents sat in the back, whispering to each other, Ryan checking his phone as if he was doing me a favor just by being there. When my name was called, I stood, heart pounding. The judge, a stern-looking woman with silver glasses, glanced at me and nodded. "Ms. Carter, proceed." I began speaking, my voice trembling at first but growing stronger with every sentence. I explained how the contract had been misinterpreted, how the evidence didn't prove guilt beyond doubt, and how the prosecution had overlooked key documentation that I'd uncovered. The courtroom was silent, the air thick with tension. I caught my parents' reflection in the window, still skeptical, still unimpressed. Then the judge leaned forward. "Counsel," she said to the opposing attorney, "I must admit, Ms. Carter's argument is both detailed and persuasive. Her evidence is solid. Unless you can disprove her findings, I see no reason to continue this line of accusation." The lawyer stammered, flipping through papers. The judge continued, "It's rare to see such precision and composure from someone this young. Impressive work, Ms. Carter." My mentor smiled at me from the table, and for a moment, everything went still. My parents' faces changed instantly. Eyes wide, jaws slightly open, like they were seeing me for the first time. The rest of the trial moved quickly after that. The verdict was clear. My client was acquitted. As the courtroom emptied, reporters asked for my name, my background, even my opinion on the case. My parents stayed seated, silent. When I finally walked over, Dad cleared his throat awkwardly. "That was something," he said. Mom nodded. "You sounded professional." It wasn't exactly praise, but it was the closest thing I'd ever heard from them. I just smiled. "Thanks for coming," I said and walked away. Later that week, the local newspaper ran a story, "Young Attorney's Discovery Turns Case Around." My parents framed the article and hung it in their living room. When relatives came over, they told the story like they'd always believed in me. I didn't correct them. I just let it be. A few months later, Ryan came to me for legal advice about a business dispute. He looked nervous, like he didn't know how to ask. I listened carefully and gave him my best counsel, not because I wanted revenge, but because I'd learned something more powerful than proving others wrong. Real strength is quiet confidence. And sometimes, the best way to win isn't to shout, it's to let the truth speak for itself. Because that day in court, when the judge praised my work and the room went silent, I didn't just win a case, I won back my self-worth. My parents rolled their eyes when I walked into the courtroom, but when the judge spoke, they finally saw what I had always known. I was never too soft for this world. I was just strong in a way they couldn't yet understand.